Them birds gonna fly, you already know. Rain, sleet, or snow, Eagles train to go.
All right, let's talk about it. Philadelphia Eagles at Los Angeles Chargers for Week 14. So the game started off with the Eagles doing something they haven't been doing that I spoke on in recent weeks. They have to utilize Dallas Goedert on the third down situations, third and short or third and 9 or anything like that. And the game started out with them needing to pick up a first down with Dallas Goedert on the third and 9. But they eventually had to punt the ball, start out the drive that way, negative like usual. And then when LA got the ball, they were on the 3rd and 7. The Eagles almost had them on a 3 and out. But Herbert was able to get a check down to the running back that ended up going for 60 yards and putting LA in the Eagles' red zone. Once in the Eagles' red zone, Omarion Hampton was able to get a 4-yard reception for an easy touchdown, putting LA up 7-0. After 3 good Saquon running plays, one for 19 yards, another one for 10 yards, and another one for 9 yards, Dallas Goedert was able to complete a 3rd and 11 after a Tyler Steen holding call that set the Eagles back. They weren't able to capitalize on that drive and eventually had to settle for a 41-yard field goal from Jake Elliott, making the game 7-3. When the Eagles got the ball again after the defense was able to stop LA, Jalen Hurts threw an interception. They were moving on that drive. He had a good throw to A.J. Brown and one to Dallas Goedert, but he ended up throwing an interception. That was one of the weirdest things that I've ever seen in a football game because Jalen Hurts threw the interception. Will Shipley was able to play defense and punch the ball out, did a great job, and the ball bounced right back into Jalen Hurts' hands. You know, he tried to do too much on that play. He should have just corralled the ball in and just cradled it and laid down or something, but he tried to pick it up and make some type of move, and a 300-pound defender was able to knock the ball away from him, and LA got the ball in a favorable position. The Eagles on defense was able to stop LA with Jalix Hunt having a sack on Justin Herbert, and then they had to punt the ball. When they punted the ball, when the Eagles got the ball again, Jalen Hurts threw another interception. This time, Devontae Smith fell on his route, and the ball went right into the defender's hands. So that was the 2nd interception of the game, 3rd turnover of the game, and it wasn't even halftime yet. LA was able to capitalize on the turnover and got 3 more points off of it, making the game 10-3. The Eagles weren't able to do anything with the ball again, and when LA got the ball back, Nakobe Dean smacked Justin Herbert and he dropped the ball. The Eagles were able to recover. Byron Young dropped on the ball, and the Eagles got the ball in a favorable position, but they weren't able to do anything much with it because after a couple good Saquon runs, a Jordan Mailata holding call ended up negating an A.J. Brown touchdown. So they had to settle for a 3-point, 30-yard field goal from Jake Elliott, making the game 10-6. LA trying to capitalize when they got the ball back and take advantage of the short time left in the half. Try to drive the ball down the field. Justin Herbert tried to throw the ball, and he ended up getting his arm smacked by Jalen Phillips, and the ball floated in the air, and Adoree Jackson was able to pick that ball up for an interception. After the Adoree Jackson interception, the Eagles tried to take a shot down the field. Nothing happened. They settled for a field goal from Jake Elliott, a 48-yarder to make the game a 1-point game, and he missed that kick. We're going to talk about that later. Game goes into the halftime 10-6. When the 3rd quarter starts, Justin Herbert was doing a lot of scrambling in this game. He was the leading rusher for his team, and he kept them in the game with his legs, just playing very tough. And after he got smacked by Nakobe Dean the first time, he wasn't going to have that again, because after that, there was a couple more times that Nakobe Dean tried to blow him up, and it was failed because he was able to take off after that. And, you know, after you send a linebacker to blitz like that, there's nobody in the middle of the field. So Justin Herbert, he's just able to pick up 15 yards with his legs, and he's converting first downs and just killing the Eagles that way. The Eagles defense was still able to hold up, and LA ended up settling for a 34-yard field goal, making the game 13-6. Brian Covey's back returning the ball, and he put the Eagles in a good field position. And after a 26-yard reception from A.J. Brown, the Eagles eventually stalled out and had to settle for a 54-yard field goal from Jake Elliott, making the game 13-9. When LA got the ball back, the Eagles defense, they were on it at that point in time. They were, knocking Herbert down, and he fumbled the ball. LA was able to recover. He got sacked, and then they had to punt the ball. It was an offsides on LA when the Eagles had the ball on a 4th down that they had to really go for it. They lined up for a brotherly shove and ended up faking it on a 3rd and 1, tossed the ball to Saquon, and he was able to take it 52 yards for a touchdown, making the game 16-13 Eagles. The Eagles defense continue to keep proving that they're trying to keep the team in the game and keep the lead. But when the Eagles got the ball back, I don't know why they were still throwing the ball so much, but the ball tipped off of AJ's hand on one of the throws that Jalen Hurts threw to him and went right into the defender's hand, making it the 3rd interception for the game for Jalen Hurts. And just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, the return was about 28 yards, and all they needed was a 31-yard field goal to tie the game up. So even though the Eagles defense was still playing a great game, Jordan Davis showed up in this game. He had a sack on Justin Herbert at a perfect time, got the Eagles the ball back. AJ had 2 good catches on that drive to close out the game, but he wasn't able to capitalize on the most important catch. The ball was in his hands in the red zone. The ball was in his hands in the red zone in the touchdown area, and he dropped the ball. That would have been the play that iced the game right there, but it didn't happen. On the next play, Jalen Hurts threw the ball to Smith, something that could have put LA in a position to be using their timeouts and took the thing down to the 2-minute warning, but he dropped that ball as well. The Eagles settled for a 44-yard field goal, making the game 19-16 at that point in time, but LA still had plenty of time. And Justin Herbert, at this point, he was doing everything to keep his team in the game. He scrambled for first downs. And Quinyon Mitchell, his name was not called all night. And only on the 2nd target of the whole game, he ended up getting called for a flag and put LA in a good position to eventually go for a 46-yard field goal, tying the game up in the last couple seconds of the game, making it 19-19. So then they go to overtime. When overtime starts at the coin toss, the Eagles won the coin toss and elected to kick the ball, which I'm still not sure was a great idea or not, because that defense was out there for a long time and they went right back out there even though they were just out there. They tried to do their best to keep the Chargers out of the end zone, and they were trying, but Justin Herbert, once again, like I said, he was the leading rusher for his team for the night, scrambled on a big 12-yard run, and that led to the running back being able to pick up an 18-yard run. And even though the defense was able to put them down in a position that they were in 4th and 6, those 2 plays initially, they were backbreakers because it put them in a position for a 54-yard field goal. And their kicker, he was on it all night. He made 5 of 5 of his field goals, and he kept his team in it. And the game was 22-19 in overtime at that point, and all LA had to do was just have a defensive stance, and they were going to win the game. In a 3rd and 6 position, Jordan Mailata and Cam Jurgens got called for holding, and it was a 3rd and 16. And that could have been the end of the game right there, but Smitty got a 28-yard reception that Jalen Hurts threw the ball right down the middle. It was a laser throw, and it kept them in the game. They kept trying to drive and ended up in a 4th and 4. That play was the play of the game, and they were bailed out by LA having neutral zone infraction, giving them a fresh set of downs. After that fresh set of downs, everything should have been easy for the Eagles from there on out, because after that, they had a fresh set of downs. They were right there. They were driving. They were in their opponent's territory, and they picked up a couple first downs. It was a big first down to Dallas Goedert that put them in the red zone. And this is how you know the Eagles have lost their physicality and their identity on offense altogether. Because in any other time, when you're looking at the end zone and you have all the time in the world and you have choices to go for a field goal to tie the game or a touchdown to win the game outright, still throwing the ball in that situation, that was just bad coaching, bad play calling altogether. Bad execution as well, but it just doesn't make any sense to do that. If Jahan Dotson caught the ball, everybody would be saying something different. But nevertheless, Jalen Hurts tried to throw the ball to Jahan Dotson in the end zone, and the LA defender tipped the ball. to his teammate. He caught the ball, brought it to himself with one hand. Interception, game over. LA win 22-19. So my takeaways from the game is this was a bad game altogether from Jalen Hurts. This is probably the worst game I've ever seen him play in the Eagles uniform, because this game right here, it falls in the category of all the other losses this season thus far. Threw for 200 and something yards and lost the game. But this one was even worse in particular because of the turnovers. It was 5 turnovers altogether, albeit some of them were freak accidents, but that's not how it's going to show up on the box score. So 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions, 1 fumble. I think it's time for Jalen Hurts to get back to the basics, because right now, all the empty yards, they're not doing anything for the winning culture of the team. They're not even winning any games in these last couple games that they've been working on throwing the ball. In no world should Jalen Hurts be throwing the ball for 40 times a game. It just doesn't make any sense, because that's not how the Eagles play. Some teams play that way and they just get in shootouts and they want to win however they could win. It doesn't matter if the quarterback throws the ball 52 times. To me, that's just you're going to throw interceptions if you throw the ball that many times. It's just going to happen. The other guys get paid too. And if you're going to throw the ball 40 times, but you don't even have 21 points, that means you're not doing anything at all. It's just waste of possessions, wasted yards, wasted plays that have nothing to do with anything. So they have to get back to the basics. Justin Herbert had 135 yards in his win because he picked up meaningful yards that mattered. I feel like the Eagles have got away from what matters, because Justin Herbert is going to get praised for this type of win, and this is the type of way that Jalen Hurts was winning throughout his career. Now, like I said earlier in the season, I feel like they're trying something else for whatever reason this year. They're more worried about numbers, and it's still not working out that way. Because if you look at the numbers, the Eagles are at the bottom of yards after catch. They threw the ball to A.J. Brown about 13 times, and he made 6 receptions. So let's give and take and say half of those incompletions, they weren't his fault. It was just the ball. It was a bad ball, bad throw. The other ones, if you watch the game, you've seen it. The very first play of the game could have been a touchdown for the Eagles, or at least a big reception. A.J. Brown, the ball hit him in the hands. He dropped the ball. To close out the game, the ball hit A.J. Brown in the hands in the end zone. He dropped the ball. So those are 2 different parts of the game, the beginning and the end, where A.J. Brown was crucial in dropping the ball. 3rd game in a row, 100 yards receiving, another loss. So in a game that A.J. Brown got 100 yards and Saquon Barkley got 122 yards or something like that, and the Eagles lost a game, if you can't win that type of game where the defense was coming up with turnovers, then the identity of the team is just kind of in shambles right now as far as the winning culture is concerned. You know that the offensive play calling has been nothing to be desired. And the offense, they're just in a rut right now because the offensive line is makeshift. They get banged up all the time. People getting switched out. It seems like people have regressed because they can't hold the block for anything. They can't hold the block for anything, especially on run plays. Things are getting blown up immediately. So that has to be addressed right there. That you're not going to ignore that. Even Saquon Barkley having the type of game he had, it seemingly was a decent game, but if he didn't have a 52-yard rush, it would have never really added to his rush total like that. So it was just that 52-yard run that added to his rush total that really made it look like he had a better game than he had. He's still struggling. He's still getting hit behind the line. It's showing that he's getting hit behind the line at a high clip this season, and that's just not helping the team out at all. The defensive overload is a part of the problem right now. For the 2nd week in a row, although this game had overtime involved, the 2nd week in a row, the Eagles defense have been on the field for 40 minutes. And that's just not going to cut it. It doesn't matter what you do. It's not going to cut it. But that just has to get worked on right now. Time of possession for the defense is just too bad. It's not good for conditioning for the guys. It's going to end up putting a lot of wear and tear on them. Now, let's talk about Jake Elliott. I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. And although everybody's going to pile on Jalen Hurts for this game, as they could and as they should, it is what it is. 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions, 1 fumble. Doesn't matter how it happened, it happened. So he got to wear that. But Jake Elliott, like I've said for the last few weeks now, he's changing the complexion of the game. Leaving 3 points on the table all the time, like I said just last week, whether the Eagles are supposed to be going up by 3, getting closer, going up by 8 points, whatever the case may be, leaving those points on the table changes the game. Going into halftime, the Eagles could have been down by 1 point, changing how they felt about things. But when he missed that, it just changed the rest of the game. It changed the rest of the game. The kicker for the Chargers, he made 5 kicks. That's a majority of their points right there. See, nobody's going to talk about that. The Chargers scored 22 points. Dicker, the kicker, made 15 of those points. You have to take the points. You can't leave points on the table. It was a 3-point loss, and Jake Elliott missed a 3-pointer. The conditions were perfect. There was no wind. They were playing in a dome. I don't want to hear any excuses about that. Jake Elliott, I don't know what's up with you, man. So moving forward now, the Eagles had a terrible game. Jalen Hurts had a terrible game. But I'm not worried about that. Anybody that claims to be an Eagle fan that wants to bench Jalen Hurts or wants to just rain down on him and don't want him in the position anymore and stuff like that, like, miss me with that, man. Because everybody acts as if Jalen Hurts plays that way anyway. They act like every game he plays, he's throwing 4 interceptions and having a bunch of fumbles and getting no yards. So if that's how they act like every game goes anyway, this is somebody that was a Super Bowl MVP this same calendar year and never got to even enjoy that. All he gets is criticism, even as a Super Bowl MVP. The Eagles been disrespected all year. He's been disrespected all year. If you look at the numbers, if you look at the stats, even with 4 interceptions yesterday, that's just 6 for the year. That's still right there with the lowest amounts for the year. So it's just for other quarterbacks. The fair weather Eagle fans, they don't really know what it is. They haven't been around for the ring pop memes. Jalen Hurts changed the culture of the Eagles, whether you want to admit it or not. Whether you want to admit it or not, the Eagles took forever to win their first Super Bowl. And when they finally won one, they went right back to how they were playing before that and act like they never won a Super Bowl. And now that Jalen Hurts is the Eagles quarterback, the expectation is Super Bowl or nothing. Where did that come from? Where did that expectation come from? That's an expectation based on what he said. So I don't want to hear any of that. Everybody can say whatever they want about QB1. All the other quarterbacks have games like this all throughout the season, and nobody talks about it and nobody dwells on it. And when everybody hates you already and they're going to talk negative about you regardless of what you do, I mean, I feel like this should kind of just roll off your shoulder, because whether you did well or not, they were going to talk negative about you anyway. So it is what it is, man. I feel like the Eagles being 8-5 right now, they have a chance to still redeem themselves. They didn't move anywhere on the NFC standings after the game. They're in the same position that they were before the game and after the game. They just went down a little bit in playoff percentage, but it's still the same thing pretty much going on. And the next couple games, even if they win out, nobody's going to give them credit for it. I feel like the hardest game that they have coming up is the Buffalo game, even though Washington as a division rival is still not, it's not a cakewalk. It's 2 games. You have to play those guys. Right now, the Eagles are still in position to win 12 games this season, and that's not bad. But if they can't beat the Raiders, then, we know it's time to pack it up for the year and figure out something for next year and regroup, because this year is not going to be it. But if they can win the next couple of games, and playoffs it's a whole nother season. Playoffs is a whole nother season. You have the next couple of games to make some mistakes, make sure you solidify the playoff position. You just move on from there, man. But no matter what happens, go Birds.
Them birds gonna fly, you already know. Rain, sleet, or snow, Eagles train to go.